going to start today's deep dive with a single image, really. It's a powerful one. It kind of captures the whole human story. We are the only species that looks at the stars while holding a stone tool, and we are just defined by that duality. Our primitive biological instincts are always clashing with this incredible meticulous engineering, and today we have this perfect, almost frustrating case study that just highlights this conflict. We're looking at a huge event in space, a massive technical undertaking that was just stopped cold by the most fragile of human problems.
That's exactly it. And we've got two main sources to help us break this down. First up is the NASA Media Advisory from back in December 2025. It's a super detailed document. It really reads like a perfect blueprint,
Right.
laying out the clockwork precision for two major spacewalks planned for early January 2026. This is the horizon, our technological dream. And then our second source is the news report from Ars Technica. It's dated January 7, 2026, and it confirms the sudden, very last-minute postponement of that whole operation. And that is the primal. It's that abrupt, inconvenient reminder that no matter how flawless the plan is, the whole system hangs on a single, fragile biological organism.
So our mission today is to unpack this specific event through that lens, the conflict. How does this meticulous, decades-long planning for our future in space handle the immediate, unpredictable vulnerability of the human body? And the goal here is to get past the obvious takeaway of, oh, humans are fragile, because you, our listener, you follow this stuff closely. We need to get into why this little two-word announcement matters so much more than some huge catastrophic failure. So let's dive in. If you look at the plan NASA put forward, it was just a masterpiece of coordination. These weren't just some minor fixes. They were crucial final upgrades for the International Space Station. We're talking about the 278th and 279th spacewalks in the station's entire history.
And the context here is just so important for understanding the stakes. The ISS, as we know, it has a planned decommissioning date around 2030. So what the crew is doing now, it's less about just daily operations and more like long-term retirement planning for the station. These last few major tasks are absolutely critical. They're needed not just to keep the lights on now, but to make sure the station has everything it needs for its eventual safe and controlled deorbit. They're finishing the puzzle right before they have to take it apart.
Okay, so let's focus on that first planned spacewalk, scheduled for Thursday, January 8th. The human and technical precision of it. The crew pairing alone was really symbolic. You had astronauts Mike Fincke and Zena Cardman.
And for Fincke, this EVA was supposed to be his 10th.
Yeah.
Hitting that number would have tied him for the most spacewalks ever done by a NASA astronaut.
Wow.
That is a historic career milestone. It takes decades of commitment, of preparation. The scheduling was so precise that he was right there on the brink of making history.
And then the counterpoint to that veteran experience was Zena Cardman. For her, this was going to be her very first step outside, her rookie flight. It's like a baptism by fire, but in a vacuum. And to pair a record-tying veteran with a complete rookie, that takes immense trust and, I imagine, just insane logistical planning. Every single contingency has to be mapped out.
Oh, absolutely. And that list of contingencies was driven by the task itself. Their primary job was preparing the 2A power channel for the future installation of the new International Space Station rollout solar arrays, the iROSA.
iROSA, yeah. We hear that term a lot.
We do, but its importance right now just can't be overstated.
Okay, so walk us through that. Why is this specific upgrade so critical?
Well, think of the ISS as a city, but a city powered by really aging infrastructure. The iROSA installations are essentially these massive, modern solar blankets. They're designed to boost the station's electrical output. And crucially, this iROSA installation, it represents the final major upgrade to the lab's entire electrical system before retirement. Without that power boost, the long-term stability needed for everything, for research, for the deorbit plan, it's compromised. It's pure, calculated, long-term engineering.
It just paints this picture of decades of planning all leading up to one single delicate procedure. A crew has to perfectly prepare a tiny segment of this massive structure that's moving at almost 8 kilometers a second, making sure the right power channel is ready for equipment that was probably designed and built years ago, thousands of miles away.
That is the horizon in practice. And it just continued with the plans for the second spacewalk a week later, on January 15th.
And for that one, the crew hadn't been finalized, but the tasks were just pure orbital complexity, right?
Totally. They were planning to replace a high-def camera, install a new navigational aid, a planar reflector on the Harmony module.
And then something about relocating ammonia jumpers.
Yeah, relocating ammonia servicer jumpers on the S6 and S4 truss. I know those terms sound like jargon, but they describe life support and safety. The truss segments, S6 and S4, they're basically the backbone of the station. They carry power, heat control, and those ammonia jumpers are specific hoses that manage the ammonia flow for the station's cooling system. If they aren't working right, the whole temperature system is at risk. And the planar reflector, that's a new navigational marker. It's essential for future docking. It's all just highly specific, critical work.
So we have this machine, decades in the making, billions of dollars invested. We have 2 astronauts ready for these huge personal milestones and a critical piece of engineering about to be installed. Everything is proceeding with this meticulous mathematical certainty.
Right. It makes the technical side of it almost seem routine. We're talking about the 278th and 279th times humans have done this. That level of repetition, of planning, is what creates this illusion of perfection.
And given that flawless trajectory, all that dedication to precision, it just makes the sudden stop even more jarring. So what was the reason? What did NASA actually say to stop everything?
The shift was instantaneous. On Wednesday afternoon, January 7th, just hours before Fincke was set to tie the record, NASA announced a postponement. All the work just stopped.
And the cause? The statement was so brief and just painfully ambiguous. A medical concern with one of the crew members, that's it, nothing more.
And this is exactly where the human element creates a massive logistical problem. NASA immediately went into this rigid adherence to medical privacy. The statement was crystal clear. It said, due to medical privacy, it is not appropriate for NASA to share more details. They only offered that the situation was stable and promised they'd reschedule later.
So, an immediate information vacuum. We know the crew up there was diverse. 3 U.S. astronauts, 3 Russian cosmonauts, 1 Japanese astronaut. But NASA gave 0 information about who was affected. Was it Fincke? Was it Cardman, whose rookie flight is now on hold? Or was it one of the other 5? We just don't know. And the protocol means we can't know.
And this is a really critical moment for looking at NASA's risk tolerance today. It is exceedingly rare for a crew health concern, especially when they confirm is stable, to postpone an event of this magnitude. It suggests that the internal protocol just dictates that any uncertainty about crew health, no matter how small it seems, has to lead to an operational pause.
Is there any kind of historical precedent for this, for a mission to halt like this, for a non-catastrophic issue?
Yes, actually, and it's very relevant. We can look back to 2021. There was a delay that NASA also vaguely called a minor medical issue. We only found out later from the astronaut himself, Mark Vande Hei, that the issue was a pinched nerve.
A pinched nerve.
A pinched nerve. It caused a multi-week delay in a crew change for a spacewalk. So that really shows you the tight operational restrictions. Something relatively minor on Earth, a musculoskeletal issue, is treated as a system-critical fault when you're in orbit.
So there you have it. The pinnacle of human engineering, the station, the planning, the critical upgrades, all brought to a screeching halt by the biological unpredictability of one of 7 people, by a 2-word phrase, medical concern. Okay, so let's unpack that core theme we started with, the conflict between perfect planning and biological fragility. Why does this one short phrase have the power to stop the future in its tracks, especially when the problem is defined as stable?
We'll just contrast what that phrase means down here, on Earth. If you have a medical concern, but you cancel a meeting, maybe you take an Uber to a clinic, it's an isolated, manageable disruption. But 400 kilometers above us, moving at 7.6 kilometers per second, the context shifts entirely. You're trapped in a metal box. There is no ER, no surgical team on standby, no way to rush to a specialist. The logistical reality is that the most fragile link in this entire advanced, technologically perfect system is the human body. It has 0 redundancy.
And this is where it gets so much deeper than just fragility, you know? We successfully transported tons of iron and titanium into orbit. We figured out the physics, the life support, the power generation, but we completely failed to leave our own vulnerability behind.
The central conflict, as our sources really highlight, is that the biggest obstacle to our desire to explore the universe is, again and again, our own biological systems. We can calculate trajectories down to the millimeter, but we can't predict the silent operation of the human nervous system or cardiovascular health under all that microgravity and radiation.
And given that parallel with the pinched nerve, this isn't necessarily some huge life-threatening crisis. It's a logistical one. It makes you ask, if the situation was stable, why not just delay 24 hours? Does this maybe suggest that NASA's protocol for a medical concern is, I don't know, too rigid, prioritizing absolute caution over mission momentum?
I think it speaks volumes about how they quantify risk. For NASA, the cost of rescheduling 2 major EVAs, the lost crew time, readjusting ground support, missing that iROSA window, All of that is less costly than the risk of sending an astronaut out the hatch who has some undiagnosed volatile internal issue. I mean, if a crew member collapses 45 minutes into a 6-hour spacewalk, the consequences go from a delay to a catastrophic station-threatening emergency.
So the stability refers to the patient's status inside the station, but the potential instability is what could happen to the whole mission if that astronaut were outside in the suit.
Exactly. The human element has the power to bring the most sophisticated engineering to its knees. And, consider the psychological weight on the crew member whose body caused this. To know that your physical status, something as simple as an ear infection maybe, just delayed a historic moment for a colleague and put a critical upgrade on hold that introduces a whole new kind of pressure into that closed system.
That's where that silent alarm really rings. In the darkness outside the station, even the slightest biological error becomes a mission-critical risk. The greatest danger isn't always some external meteor. Sometimes it's the silent problem circulating in our veins.
And the silence of that postponed spacewalk, it really confirms a central lesson for you, the listener. As we push toward the horizon, deep space missions to Mars and beyond, human health risk management is going to rapidly and definitively overtake mechanical and engineering challenges as the limiting factor. The hardware is almost there. The biology is not.
So what does this all mean for the next era of exploration? We know a minor, unspecified medical issue can stop a mission 400 kilometers away where health is. Well, it's delayed, but it's still only hours away.
It forces us to confront the real existential question of deep space. If a simple, stable, undisclosed ailment demands a full mission halt right here, what kind of critical, autonomous medical infrastructure do we need to develop to handle these silent biological problems on a Mars mission?
Just think about the cost of that autonomy. When the nearest specialist is months, maybe years away, what level of guaranteed illness are we as a species willing to accept in our astronauts? That tension between accepting biological risk and demanding technological perfection, that is the central conflict we face as we leap toward the stars. And this whole exploration, this tension between the perfect plan and the human reality, it's exactly why we started this deep dive. If this discussion sparked something for you or clarify why a 2-word press release matters so much, we really encourage you to join the timeline. Hit that subscribe button, and most importantly, share your insights down in the comments. We really want to hear your thoughts on how we solve this fundamental biological hurdle before we actually go to Mars.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.